I literally don't follow it. Again, he is up to his eyeballs in about me constantly. This is his content, to talk about me. That's incredibly, incredibly insulting to say that I don't have a family. Okay? Like, he doesn't understand that the only reason he ever had a modicum of popularity on the internet is because he's a drama queen who rode on the backs of other people's misery. He doesn't get that. Once you put on the clown makeup and you start the clown show, the makeup doesn't ever wash off. Anyway, we're done with that. We got to talk about our other big topic for this morning, all right? So, I was made aware of a situation that I am not happy with in any way, shape, or form, and you guys know me. I'm not one for drama. I try to stay out of drama. I want nothing to do with drama. All right.
Doesn't like to talk about drama, yet here we are. Would you look at that? For a guy who's constantly saying that he doesn't like to talk about drama, he sure does find a way to get himself involved pretty often, doesn't he? He can feel free to pretend all he wants. Everyone can already see that he loves talking bad about other people and is looking for every opportunity to do so. I just wish that he would be honest about it for honesty's sake.
But as you know, upcoming during the summer, there's going to be a series of documentaries released by June the King. Okay. One of them is about me, and I'm going to live react to that one. But there's also one about Review Tech USA coming up. And that one's supposed to come out before mine in early August, okay? And so I announced, yes, I will do a long-form react to that one. And you might say, well, why are you going to do that? Well, there's two reasons. Number one, because I haven't done a long-form react in over a year, so it's good to have different kinds of content. And number two, because Rich from Review Tech USA has been a heinous person towards me for the greater part of over a decade, all right?
Something tells me that the second reason he gave was far more important to him than the first. You'll see soon enough, don't worry. But I'm really not surprised at all to see DSP going back after Rich of Review Tech USA again. I'm more shocked than anything that it didn't happen sooner actually, due to all of RTU's constant escapades and rapid ascension up the lolcow ladder. I guess DSP was just looking for an excuse, and finally he was able to justify to himself that this was worth doing, that this would be a worthwhile addition to his content and worth his audience's time. You know, that audience that also doesn't care about drama or other lolcows, but instead chill gameplay to relax and drool to.
I literally have nothing to do with this man at all. I don't watch his content. I don't talk about him, but he literally nonstop talks about me. And of course, it's mostly in a negative light. It's always something he has to say to make him feel like he's better than me, right? And man, if only Phil had a brain for this or that, and always I'm doing something wrong, and always rolling with the memes about me and everything. And literally this guy has made a living talking shit about others for the past decade. Keep in mind, this is a guy who used to review tech, which is why his name is Review Tech USA. But he doesn't do that anymore because basically no one cared about him doing that. But he only got views and clicks when he started doing drama content. Like he's a TMZ Gossip Girl style channel on YouTube, right?
Oof, to be called the Gossip Girl style by the guy? That's gotta feel bad. Believe it or not though, I do remember seeing RTU back when he did legitimately review tech. I didn't know it at the time how rich the lore was behind him, and I couldn't possibly have imagined he would be more insufferable than the guy, but I do remember seeing him back then. For anybody who's unfamiliar, if you thought that DSP talking in circles is nonsense, then you should really check out Review Tech USA. It's somehow more dead air while also having an obnoxious soundboard. You'd think that that would be impossible, but he actually makes it happen. And I know that I don't speak on RTU all that often, and that's for good reason, but I will say this concretely. DSP legitimately does offer more entertainment value than anything that RTU could possibly do. And for that reason alone, he is in fact beneath DSP when it comes to ranking the dregs of society. I'll even take it to one step further and say that when DSP beefs with RTU, that's about the only time I can ever really hope for a Phil W. And if at any point during this video it sounds like I'm giving DSP too much credit, I do apologize. It's just not too often that I talk about DSP positively, but when compared to RTU, how could I not? Of course, I'm still not willing to pretend that Phil never invited any of Rich's nonsense into his streams, because he absolutely did, quite a lot throughout the years actually.
And I have an issue with the guy, and I've called it out over the years over and over. I don't support this kind of content. I think it's incredibly harmful. I don't think it should exist on YouTube to begin with. It certainly shouldn't be monetized, all right? But guess what? YouTube doesn't care. Toxic behavior continues. And the thing is, I made it clear over the years, I want nothing to do with this guy, right? I just don't. Yet he constantly tries to interject himself into my life. He's constantly talking about me. He used to come on my streams and try to derail the entirety of my streams. I had to ban him from all of my channels because he would keep coming back. I had to ban him from Twitter because he kept quoting me on Twitter, and then all of his idiotic viewers would start repeat quoting him and tweeting him, and I would get my entire feed filled with bullshit This guy is the most immature dude. He would take dumb memes and shit, and I have to see them in my timeline. Like, I don't want to see your nonsense. I just want to run my business. Leave me the fuck alone. And the thing is, I've told him time and time again, over and over and over about this. He said, I want nothing to do with you. I've tried to be civil with the guy. About a year and a half ago, you know, one of his kids was sick. And I actually reached out with an olive branch to the guy. And I said, listen, all beef between us, you know, aside, I'm really sorry to hear that when your family member there is sick. And I wish the best. I really hope that things go better. And he said to me at that point, oh, you know, that was so nice of you. Would you like to come on my show and talk with me and my editor? Yes, because this was before, I guess, he had the breakup with his editor or whatever. And I was like, I don't even know why he spun it that way. I was like, I don't know, you know. And then later that day, he goes on Twitter and talks shit about me. Later that day, he goes on Twitter and actually said nasty things about me. The day when I wished him well, that his daughter would get better.
Oh, don't act like you were being decent without the expectation of something in return, you little weasel. Granted, I think he was looking more for good optics rather than a collaboration, but not for a second do I actually believe DSP was going to forgive past transgressions for nothing. He has been known in the past to hold the pettiest grudges for years at a time, so I really don't think that RTU would have been any different. I really just think that he's more upset that he got snaked before he could do the snaking. He's always looking to be the snaker and never the snakey.
He actually went and talked shit about me the same day. And I went back to him. I said, just so you know, usually the traditional way you respond to someone being nice to you and extending an olive branch is not to immediately go and attack them on Twitter. So goodbye. And I blocked him again. And that was it. And that's really the last time I talked to the guy. Okay.
It may have been the last time that he talked to him, but it most certainly was not the last time he talked about him. He found a way to talk about RTU and his drama about as often as he could, albeit always behind a very performative.
Just because someone has treated you badly doesn't mean you wish them ill. Which is happening now with Review Tech. I don't want him to have a bad life. I don't want him to be going through stress. I don't want him to be going through bad things. I want him to have a better life. Because maybe if things were going better for him, he wouldn't do toxic content, right? Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because, as I said, I am going to react to Rich's documentary. I don't follow this guy, but now I'm intrigued about his history. Where did he come from? How did he get into drama content on YouTube? Why did he go down this toilet? And what is all the controversy around him these days? I don't know any of it. I literally don't follow it. Again, he is up to his eyeballs in shit about me constantly. This is his content, to talk shit about me. But I don't know anything about him. So I think it would be fascinating, right, to actually watch this documentary, long form react to it, and learn about someone who has literally done drama content about me for 10 years in an educational way and respond very matter-of-factly to it. I think people are going to love this react because obviously I am in a prime position to react to this documentary about this man who has talked about me for over a decade, right?
Again, hates to get involved in drama, but it keeps coming up as a reason to justify his behavior, and he even eyed himself to be in a prime position. I am happy to see, however, that DSP has apparently learned nothing from Adam Krigler, because he's still getting his information on these internet personalities from the exact same type of YouTube documentaries that he blames for spreading slander about him. I just hope that a couple of months down the road that we don't have to hear any of his whining about how he was misrepresented and people don't know the full context, you guys. Unfortunately, I can see that exact type of thing happening, of course, after he tries to get out in front of the documentary as much as he possibly can. He's already come up with multiple preemptive excuses to try and explain away some of the more questionable behaviors of his past, and he's decided to do an entire react to it, excluding the parts he doesn't want people to see, obviously, because that's what every other honest content creator would do.
So, that being said,
shout out, obviously.
That's it. That's where I've left it, right? I haven't really talked about this at all. I just said, I'm going to react to this guy's documentary. So, as usual, I know that he always talks shit about me or whatever. So, someone actually contacted me and said, just so you know, not only is he constantly talking shit about you, now he's gotten wind that you are want to react to June the King's documentary about him. And because of that, he came out publicly on stream the other day, and he actually has threatened and attacked June the King. And I was like, what? Like, I thought, nah, this sounds like bullshit. This sounds like someone's going to send me a video of stuff that's out of context because they're trying to stir up drama, right? So I watched the video. Now, first of all, for clarification, no, it wasn't the raw video, but it was pretty much like an hour of unedited Rich being watched by two other guys. I guess it's those guys, Kino, or whatever. I've never seen them before. I know nothing about them. You guys have mentioned them in my chat before, so I didn't know anything about this. So it's like they're commenting on what he's saying and everything, and I'm just trying to like get the gist of what's going on, okay?
Oh, you mean exactly how so many of your detractors reserve your content as more palatable and digestible content that can actually be enjoyed? Glad to see that once again it's rules for thee and not for re. As long as someone else other than Phil is suffering, he couldn't give a shit less. As for a clip of what Rich actually said on the stream, that's not going to happen. It's too long ago now and I'm not sitting through any RTU content if I can help it. And while I knew that DSP knew of the casino, I couldn't have foresaw him outright admitting to watching a full hour's worth of content from them. Not the way that he just did, at least. I guess that just speaks to the quality of the content that Kino Casino was putting out. Even DSP has to admit that the feltoning laid upon Dickers routinely is in fact Kino. That doesn't make him any less of a hypocrite, of course.
So I start to watch this video. I watched it last night, okay? And literally what Rich is doing, first of all, Rich apparently has had a huge breakdown, which I didn't know. I guess he doesn't really make content anymore, and when he does, it's rare, and when he does, no one watches it. Like, his channels are falling apart. He's got, like, no views. He's deleting videos en masse. He's losing subscribers. I know nothing about any of this. I'm not involved in it. I don't know anything about it, nor do I revel in it. Like I told you guys, I wish these people the best. I feel like if these people were having good lives, they would leave everyone else around them alone and wouldn't be drama queens trying to bring other people down. But the problem is they don't have good lives. So things fall apart and, you know, then all this shit happens.
And would you look at that? Almost verbatim, the exact same nonsense that I just included a few minutes ago. Also that he can once again shield himself from anything negative that he says because he, like Ricada, wished him $1 million or whatever.
So I wasn't aware of any of this. Well, apparently this is all going on. You know, the Kino Casino guys were talking about it in the video. And basically, he's on stream, and you can see, if you look at his eyes, he is wasted. Now, I don't know if he's high. I don't know if he's drunk. I don't think he was drunk because he wasn't slurring his words or whatever. But this dude was, like, toasted, right? You can tell he was on something.
I'm unsure as to why DSP refuses to just say that Rich is high. If he was high or drunk, but you don't think that he was drunk, then you could have just said he was high. What's with all the filler? Then he went on to say that he was on something. How did he turn one sentence, you could tell he was high, into 4? He really never fails to waste as much oxygen as possible, does he?
And basically, they start playing the part where he's talking about this upcoming documentary. And he goes like, June the King, he's making this documentary about me. And I don't understand because he didn't contact me. He didn't contact me to ask me anything in the midst of making this documentary, right? So now here's the funny part about it. I've said for many, many years, many documentaries have been made about me. And no one ever contacted me for any kind of information about one of them until June the King. He was literally the first person to ever ask me for my take on a few different things that he was researching, and he couldn't get a clear picture, so he wanted to get my take. And for the record, with the things that June asked me about, sometimes he would be like, okay, so your answer actually corroborates the information I found. And then other times he'd be very honest and be like, Phil, what you told me doesn't seem to be corroborated by evidence on the internet. So it's going to be presented as that you said this, but here's what I found. I said, you can do whatever you want. Go for it. Make it the most honest documentary ever. If I'm wrong or if I'm misremembering, it should be presented that way, right?
Then again, I have to ask, what is the difference between when June the King does it and when all of your other detractors do it? You can't say it's because the others don't have your side of the story, because on so many events you've been giving nothing but your side of the story for years. You'd think that since DSP feels so strongly about reaching out to people before a documentary though, that he would have actually have been on Rich's side. And as somebody who's on the outside looking in, I'm really only left with one question, and that is, why is Darkside Phil of all people, the insufferable man baby, the special little fella who gets to write his own lore? Not that I think it honestly matters too much, because regardless of whatever June asked DSP or what was said in response, I think that the doc is still going to be incredibly tame and milquetoast at best. I'd love to be proven wrong, of course, but I really have no hope that either doc is going to be as scathing as these two deserve.
So I appreciated that, but I get the feeling it's not going to make me look good. It's just not. It's not going to make me look good whatsoever, because it's probably going to be things I misremember, heinous things I've done in the past, which I've already fessed up to. But, you know, that's life. You do things. It's like we all have our time in the firing line, right? We all did heinous things, and we're all in the public light. We're all going to have that negative light shined on us at some point, and you got to face the music for what you've done. Correct? So it is what it is.
We all have our time in the firing line. What a morbid way to look at things. It's especially striking from the guy because he's always pretending to be Mr. Chill. And I'm quite unsure as to what he means when he says we have all done heinous things. I don't need DSP speaking on my behalf, and I would recommend everyone else keep that same energy about him. It is insane to me though that DSP is sat here talking about accepting responsibility and facing the music when he is the first person that comes to my mind when I think of zero accountability. For Christ's sake, one of his most iconic lines is, I did nothing wrong, I did everything correct. Need I say more?
So Rich apparently is so upset, right? Because June is making a documentary about him, But June didn't contact him to ask him specifically about certain topics, right? So as he's saying this, he's like, well, I was going to have you know that if he has something about a certain, I don't even know what he's talking about because he's mentioning like specific drama situations that I'm not into. I don't know what he's talking about at all. I think he mentioned something about like a Dropbox or Discord or something. You know what I mean? Like just random things he's referencing. The layperson has no clue what he's talking about. Like, what? I'm not in on this shit, right?
DSP is trying desperately to sound uninformed and out of the loop while simultaneously knowing all of the topics of discussion and the websites and apps involved. And this is why I wish he would just give up on the act and acknowledge that he loves drama. Imagine how much more fun he could be having if he just started spouting all of the information that he knew and what he thought about it. And imagine all of the fun that the detractors could be having, calling out all of the hypocrisies and all of the fails in his logic. It would just make for genuinely more exciting content than the slop that he currently makes.
But basically, he's referencing specific things, right? And then he goes, well, if he mentions any of those, I'm just going to have you know. Just listen to this. I'm not like Phil. I don't have a fake family. Okay? I'm not like Phil. I don't have a fake family. You know what? I took that personally. Yes, the me. I took that personally.
Good. It's about time that someone finally said it in a way that penetrated your industrial strength skull. You don't have a real family. You have a wife and a cat. That is not a family. It's a household at best. And while, yes, you can say that technically he has parents and extended family like his cousin, and trust me, he will say those things, I'd say given how far away they are and how little he even has to do with them at this point, that no, DSP does not have a family in any practical sense. So I can hate on Rich all that I want, but he is right in that department, and it's incredibly cringe that DSP thinks that this is the point to get smug about, that this was the bait that drew him into the fray. Crazy that something so factually accurate was the shot heard round the world for Philly Boy.
Because I do have a real family. I have parents, I have a wife, I have a cat, and yes, you can joke he's my pet, but he's still part of my family, right? And I also have extended family and relatives. I have a family. Maybe I don't have direct children, human children, but I do have a family, okay? And I'm pretty upset that he would say that, like, because he has kids, he's basically better than me. I want you to think about that. There are people on Earth that think they're better than you because they chose to have sex and not use contraception and reproduce. Literally the easiest fucking thing you can do in life is reproduce. You don't even have to work to do it, and it feels good. You're tempted to do it because it feels so good. That's the whole idea, is to keep the human race alive. This is not a challenge. This is not a daunting task. Anyone can fucking reproduce.
I just want to say for the record that I don't think that reproducing is the easiest thing that you can do. In fact, I'm pretty sure that the whole thing is an entire ordeal, and many people throughout history have died being birthed or died as a result from childbirth. It's incredibly complicated when you get into the specifics, and from what I'm told, the entire process is rather painful. I do think that it is something that is often not well planned for or thought out, but those are not the same thing. I would also like to say again, for the record, that if you aren't putting any work in while reproducing, that is embarrassing, and it's no wonder your wife wants nothing to do with you. I don't think that RTU was trying to insinuate that he was better than DSP though. I think that he was trying to get across that he actually has something to lose or people in his life that could be negatively harmed and that they are unwilling bystanders in the whole thing. I personally don't buy into any of that for a second though. He was the one after all that put his own kid's drama online for pity bucks. You get what you deserve out here, and who am I to hold back the hands of fate? Especially when all he had to do was be a better father and none of this would have happened.
So to say that someone doesn't actually have a family because they didn't choose to reproduce is insanely stupid, insanely dumb, and insanely insulting. It just proves that the guy is a world-level dunce, okay? Can't believe he would say that about me. That's incredibly, incredibly insulting to say that I don't have a family, okay? So the reason he said that was, oh, well, you see, I'm not like Phil. I have a real family, and therefore there's things that could be in this documentary, right, that would be very harmful to my children. And that's why I'm going to tell you right now, if certain things are talked about in this documentary, I'm just going to have to strike down June the King. That's what he said. He said, I'm going to strike down the video. Now, it's not clear what he's saying. Is he saying he's going to copyright strike it? Is he saying he's going to flag it for bullying or disinformation? He's not outright saying what he means, but he's essentially saying, I'm laying my intentions out publicly here right now, that if you talk about certain topics in this documentary, I am going to flag the video and have it removed from YouTube. Okay? He actually publicly laid out this intention.
And that's just gotta be one of the biggest L's in history. Imagine, he made years worth of content on DSP, and then when the world finally wises up to how big of a scumbag he is, he immediately cries victim and starts threatening to take videos down. All because he doesn't like the way that he's being portrayed. It's insulting, it's revolting, it's sick, it's piss. You'd think, given the constant discussion of DSP on his own streams, that he would be able to give and receive, to take his share of drama and accept it as a byproduct of his own content, but of course he couldn't. As he's shown in the past, Rich is not afraid to abuse the flagging system on YouTube. He's been willing to go as far as dox his ops in the past. So this shit ain't nothing to him, man. And for anybody who's interested in hearing more about Rich's skullduggery of the past, I would highly recommend Kino Casino Clips on YouTube to get all of the old Rich lore.
All right? Now, here's the thing. I can understand where Rich is coming from. He has kids, and he's trying to protect those children. Okay, I get that. The thing is, I don't fully understand the situation because, as you know, I don't follow drama. I don't know what the drama is with Rich and his kids. I really don't know. I have no idea to what extent they've been a part of his content or his discussions publicly in his content. Here's the truth. If you don't want them to be a part of it, then you shouldn't bring it up, correct? Like, there's things that I absolutely want nothing to do with in my life. I don't bring them up. Now, if people go out of their way to go behind the scenes and find information about things that I don't talk about on stream, and they decide to try to slap it all over the internet, I certainly can't help that, right? If anything, that just shows how insane my haters are, because it has nothing to do with me, right? But anything that I actively choose to bring up on a stream, that's on me because I brought it up, right? For example, as you know, I've been having some personal issues for the past 2 or so years, and I haven't ever told you guys what they are, okay? I just tell you, sometimes I'm really stressed out, sometimes it screws up my schedule. You know, you don't know what they are. You don't know why? Because I don't want that to be part of my content. I don't want that to be a burden on my viewers. I don't want you guys to absolutely know every little thing that's going on in my personal life. Technically, it's none of your business, nor would I want to put that on you. You're coming here, all right, in order to have fun with me and have a good time with gaming. You don't want to hear my constant sob stories about bullshit going on behind the scenes. I shouldn't put that on you, right? So I don't. Apparently what people are saying is Rich has brought up his family, he has brought up his kids and everything, and because of that, that's why it's in the drama sphere of talking about this guy, all right?
That has got to be one of the craziest lies I've ever heard from DSP. I don't know how he can be so blatantly dishonest like that. To say that he doesn't put his sob stories on his audience when he knows damn well that he gets on stream every day and cries poor, talking about how he has 2 big bills coming up. He's had to have completely pignatized himself at this point. That is the only explanation that makes sense, because nobody can tell a lie so obviously false with such conviction. Somehow, despite that, he does appear to understand the issue that can create and how it would negatively impact the stream and the content. And you just gotta love how he says that he leaves out info he doesn't want people to know or speculate about, just to confirm moments later that there has in fact been a reoccurring issue for the past 2 years, and that it has messed his schedule up several times throughout those years, because that'll surely quell any Theo theories out there that are actively being conjured up.
So if there's literal facts on the internet about someone because they chose to expose that to the internet and bring it up, why would that not be fair game for a documentary? All right. Now, here's the thing. If you feel that that information is harmful or is not true, because why would it really be harmful? Unless it was true and it exposes something bad that you've done, in which case just fess up and move on. Or if it's not true, then you need to debunk it, correct? So if that's the case, if this is a big deal, if the documentary comes out and has information in it that's misinformation, react to it. Expose the misinformation. Explain why it's misinformation. Add corroborating testimony or evidence, or if you can't do evidence, because I understand. Listen, firsthand, I'm someone who can understand where Rich is coming from in some of this, because there will be things coming up in the Junior King documentary about me, about finances and personal information behind the scenes, that I've been legally advised not to talk about. And I know that if I ever expose my own personal information to defend myself and clear my name, it would lead to people being able to harm me in other ways. And after weighing and balancing the situation, I would much rather just have people talking about one stupid thing that's not true and believe it than then get into 10 other things that have nothing to do with it, but then they're able to harm me for the rest of my life. I'd rather have this over here, the devil I already know, than the devil I don't. You understand? So maybe that's the situation or whatever. All right? Maybe he is afraid that if he defends himself from certain accusations, he'll expose himself even further. That I can understand.
And I think that last part specifically is the part that DSP can relate closest to. The inability to speak on a subject that pertains to him simply because he knows, as does everyone at this point, that if he were to speak on his finances or his WWE champion spending, he would be further incriminating himself, both figuratively and potentially literally. For someone who doesn't know a lot about the situation, though, he sure is talking an awful lot about it, and talking as if it's coming from a place of knowledge. Phil really is everything that he hates about detractors, which is wild because more often than not, his detractors aren't even guilty of the things that he accuses them of. And I'm unsure whether this was intended, as I don't know the current LARPer status of Steak Sandwich here in the chat, but he is on screen right now saying, Rich needs to make vague statements that he doesn't get into so he can have his cake and eat it too. If I didn't know any better, this is at DSP Space Gaming, because that is exactly the kind of behavior he just condoned Rich do instead for the exact same reason he does it. I'm just never sure if the dents in his chat are actually calling him out by restating what he said in a more obviously stupid way, or if they really are just that dented that it goes over their own heads.
All right? But the truth is, it's fair game. And especially from someone like Rich. Rich is someone who for the last decade has made a living by talking about other people's dirty laundry. This is not a man who reviewed tech for the last 10 years. And all of a sudden now, out of nowhere, he's being drawn into the drama sphere. He literally made a living on drama for a decade. Now, all of a sudden, the camera has been turned back at him. And he's like, wait, no. Wait, what do you mean, wait, no? It's your turn, bro. You're the one who had the camera on everyone else. Now it's your turn to go through your dirty laundry and have your shit exposed. It's only fair game. And if you don't like it, tough shit. You already made your bed, and now you gotta fucking sleep in that shit-infested sheets that you've created. That's what happens, man. That's life.
How does he always manage to take it back to the scatological style commentary? It wasn't enough to just say he made his bed, now he's gotta lie in it. No, of course not. He had to say the sheets were shit infested. Not shit encrusted, mind you, but shit infested, as if there is some sort of infestation. I'm by no means a scat man, but I'm not quite sure that that's how that works. Apparently that's life though. Not the life that I'm living, but a life according to DSP.
So now you gotta live with it. That documentary is going to come out, and you're going to have to fucking live with it. And there's nothing you can do about it. There's no amount of threats or fake warnings or anything you can say and do about to this guy. Are you out of your mind? Do you not think that if you hit June the King with false copyright strikes or false takedown requests, that the internet community is going to rise up against you? You want to talk about bad karma now? Imagine what happens. You've already declared your public intentions to do something heinous. If it happens, everyone's going to blame you. I mean... So anyway, that's only one thing. Like, no lie, in this clip that I watched, Rich literally, like 10 times keeps saying things like he's better than me. Oh, you see, but I'm not like Phil, and I'm better than Phil, and this and that. He keeps saying it. I'm like, wow, this guy genuinely believes that. Like, he doesn't understand that the only reason he ever had a modicum of popularity on the internet is because he's a drama queen who rode on the backs of other people's misery. He doesn't get that. He actually thinks he made meaningful content for people. He's lost.
You know, I hate to do it, but I think that I have to. DSP is 100% correct.
And by the way, Atlas agrees with me.
Rich does think that he's better than DSP, and while that is true when 99% of the world says it, that's just not the case for Rich. Somehow, he has managed to make worse content than DSP while simultaneously being more underhanded and deceitful. DSP might scam his dents with nonsense to pull Hogan's, but Rich literally backdoored into his former editor's computer. I'm by no means a legal analyst, but that sounds kind of like a crime to me, and even if it's not, that's next level scumbaggery that I don't even think DSP would do. And that's before we even talk about how he hides behind his blind daughter to shield himself from criticism on the internet. And let me remind you that the daughter is blind from medication that Rich gave her. So his content is low effort slop, he's a cruel and wicked liar that has gotten entire channels struck down before, and he's a horrible bum of a father. At least DSP has the decency to not breed. Even he understands his bloodline isn't worth continuing. If only RTU had gotten the same message.
And now, but the thing is, now again, it has been turned back against him, and now he can't handle it. This is a guy for 10 years. All he did was bring down others to get ahead and make money. And now that he is the target of that kind of ire, he can't take it. He's literally saying, oh, leave me alone because I have kids. What? Because you have kids, because you reproduced, we all have to forgive you and just say, oh, you don't get your time in the spotlight? Oh, no, that's not how it works. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's actually the opposite now because you were the person for 10 years who acted like that. Now you're going to get it worse than everybody else. You understand? So anyway, yeah, the way I see it is I just don't understand where he's coming from. It sounds to me like he's just high off his ass and he's talking shit.
Glad to hear him outwardly say that Rich is high, because it's not like it's a secret. Anybody with 2 firing synapses can see it in his face, and don't even get me started on how agonizingly slow he talks. I've heard people with legitimate speaking style disabilities communicate faster and more coherent than Rich, and that's the content that he thinks is worth everybody's time. I think that it is about time that Rich have his day in the sun though. He's been getting reamed really well over the past few months, and I think that we have Kino Casino to thank for that. But I am glad that a normie documentary maker like June is shining the light as well, because let's be honest, his content has a wider and broader appeal in comparison, even if I don't prefer the content myself.
But the fact that this guy is literally just going down in flames, saying all this stuff about me and then about June the King. June the King, like, I don't know, but besides LTG, who really got upset with June the King's documentary about it. For those who don't know, many years ago, June the King did a documentary on Low Tier God. And the reason that Low Tier God got upset is because June the King basically exposed his real name and information about where he used to be located. Low Tier God was like, oh, he doxed me. But the truth is that information was all publicly available. That's how June the King got it. June the King didn't like do secret research and hack accounts. It was all on the internet. So all he did is he compiled public information that was on the internet and he presented it in his documentary. And LTG got so upset with him that, number one, he called upon his fan base to attack June the King and do whatever they could to bring down the videos or whatever. But number two, he actually doxed June the King. Because what happens is when you hit someone with a false copyright strike on YouTube, you have to dispute it to get it cleared up. So when June disputed it, it put out his personal info, and then LTG used that personal info to actually attack June. So June, has been through this ringer.
When it comes to the doxing of anyone, yes, including LTG, I take a hard and fast stance that it's just not a good look and shouldn't be done. I don't really care if the information is already out there, I don't care if it's all public record, I don't even care if it's old info, because everyone involved knows that dox information is not ever posted positively and more often than not is meant explicitly to harm. Unless required for legal purposes, I fail to see how someone's legal information could be relevant to drama on the internet. We all have fun here and get in beefs and talk that trash, but at the end of the day, it's all just dumb internet drama and it should stay that way. And I also think that that's why it's never really a good idea to get genuinely upset and irate about DSP or any other lolcow for that matter. Because again, it's dumb internet drama and it shouldn't ever be any more than that, unless you look like a spurg, and at that point, what's the difference between you and them?
And he is widely regarded as someone who vets his information. At least what he's going to present in his documentary is going to be publicly discussed information, okay? He's not going to go and literally make up a rumor, all right? For example, all right? There's been tons and tons of rumors about me, all right? And some of them likely will be discussed in the documentary if there's some kind of evidence or at least some kind of corroboration. There's other rumors about me that have absolutely, positively no merit whatsoever, all right? And June actually told me, he's like, just so you know, there's some pretty nasty stuff about you out there that's I know is not true. There's no information about it anywhere, and I'm not going to bring that stuff up because there's no point. And I was like, that's nice of you. Now, I know there's going to be tons of stuff that's going to be bad, right? That's true. Or at least some people think it's based on a nugget of truth, right? But for him to say, I'm just not going to cover the shit that I know is fake. Like, for example, these idiots say things like, oh, I groomed my ex-girlfriend, that I knew her before she was 18, and I basically groomed her for years, and then, you know what I mean? Completely untrue. Never even spoke with her until she was of legal age. In fact, she contacted me when she was of legal age, okay? And so he outright said, I'm not even going to entertain that shit. There's no point.
Brother, why would you bring this up in this manner? This really just reminds me of when he brought up Kat's restraining order during his side-scroller's interview, because there was equally no valid reason to do that either. Out of all of the things that he could have brought up, all of the controversies throughout the years, the one example that he wanted to provide right here and now is the grooming of Panda. Now, I don't have the dates in front of me, but it was absolutely suspicious how recently Panda had turned 18 and how far into their relationship they seemed to be when he introduced her. Just seemed like, at least to me, with how comfortable they were together, that they had been talking for a little bit longer than he was letting on. Again, don't have any concrete dates or anything, that's for the lore scholars out there. But it should be telling that I'm not the only one who's thought this way, and none of the lore masters that I just spoke of have come out and undeniably proven this to be false. And trust me, if it were undeniably false, if there was any way to actually validate what DSP was saying, somebody would have done such. If I know anything about the internet, the only thing that people love more than being right is proving everybody else wrong. Regardless of the truth, this still isn't the example I would have picked for this situation. There was just no need for him to draw more attention to this than there already is, especially since he isn't actually proving anything here.
So there you go. So that's the kind of guy he is. And by the way, June the King is not going to try to do months and months of content after the fact of one of these documentaries coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like, his goal is not what Turkey Tom did. What Turkey Tom did is he made a documentary, and then he said, well, now can I stir the shit, and how can I milk the situation for months on end? Can I get an interview with Darkside Phil? Can I get Darkside Phil to get on the Lol Cow podcast? Can I do this? Can I do that? You know what I'm saying? That's not what June the King does. He literally is just making his documentary, puts it out, and says, here it is, and then he moves on. He's on to the next. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I respect the guy. That's why I think that his content, if you're going to watch something covering someone on the internet, you should be watching someone who's like that, who's trying to literally be a neutral party, as opposed to someone who came in with a preconceived notion to create drama. So now that you've created the drama, you can milk it and get benefit from it, right?
I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but June undoubtedly had a preconceived notion of both RTU and DSP. If he didn't, then he wouldn't have known that these two characters would be ideal for his type of documentary content. I'm not at all shocked by DSP's standing of June the King though. For some strange reason, some time ago, DSP picked June as his golden child. The documentarian that would do what no one else had done before and give him this fair and honest shake that he's been looking for. Very peculiar to me that he picked June over Mike Klum, someone who was willing to shoot a real style documentary in person and all, but I guess that's none of my business. Maybe it's the monotone and completely vanilla take June provides that DSP loves so much, or maybe he's just hoping that due to being so bland, June won't actually hold his feet to the fire in any aspect, and will take every contradictory piece of info he received from DSP as he said, she said. Because of course, that's about the only way that you can paint DSP in a semi-positive light.
So there you go. So that's why I'm looking at this situation. Like, of all the people that Rich would be upset about, right? I just think that's just insane. You know what I'm saying? Now here's the other thing too. There's one final point that I will make about this whole situation, and then we'll move on. If Rich was so concerned with his kids somehow being like dragged into through the mud, okay, then what Rich should have done many years ago was realize that his content was going down this bad path. Okay, he should have said, oh, wait a minute. Literally, I'm just making drama content. I'm talking badly about others. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. The moment that someone asked him to take his shirt off, the moment that someone asked him to pull out a cucumber, to kiss a chicken, the moment that stuff started happening, he should have been like, wait a minute, I have kids. What am I doing? I can't be doing this. This is going to be the legacy of me that will be on the internet forever. I can't have this kind of stuff out there. I have kids. I have to think about them, right? He didn't. In fact, he leaned into that. He leaned into the extreme content. So now the internet knows him as that. And now that it's blowing up in his face because people are finding things about this, right? Now he's worried. It's like, dude, you weren't worried about your kids, because if you were, you never would have made that content years ago.
While I agree, the exact same thing could be said about DSP. All those years ago, when people started to detract, whether that be the first "this is how you don't play" or not, it doesn't matter. When all of those things started to happen and people began to chastise DSP for his behavior and the things he did, he should have taken a step back and reassessed his own legacy and content. Just like Rich though, he failed to do that, and here we are. I'll never understand how he can see the flaws in everyone else, he can see all of the mistakes that everyone else is making, but continue to fall for the exact same pit traps, to make and continue making all of the same poor decisions that he hates on everyone else for. The only difference here is that DSP doesn't have a kid. Thank God for that.
Okay, I have a little saying for everyone out there on the internet. Are you ready? You ready for this? This is for everyone out there who wants to lean into lol cow culture. I have an important announcement. Spread this, clip this, and spread this around YouTube and the internet. Are you ready? Once you put on the clown makeup and you start the clown show, the makeup doesn't ever wash off. You're a clown forever. It doesn't matter how much you try to change or how much you try to spin it, you're still a clown.
While I absolutely hate the way he prefaced that and asked it to be clipped and spread around because that's incredibly cringe, I don't think that that's a bad saying. Because he is kind of right. Once you begin doing the lol cow thing, it doesn't matter how you try to change or how infrequent your ments are, the internet remembers. I'm just wondering when DSP is gonna realize that this also applies to him, just so that I can stop hearing him talk about how he's changed and not the same guy he was yesterday. And shout out to everyone who commented that quote on my last video in the comments section. I was incredibly confused why so many people came in saying the exact same thing, but it all became clear once I was caught up.
And that's all I have to say about that. So, Rich, stop threatening people. You have no right to do so. If you have an issue with an upcoming documentary, watch it when it comes out, respond to it, like I will to mine. If you find information there that is messed up, dispute it, refute it, give opposing testimony, or give evidence. If you can't give evidence, I understand. I'm in the same boat. But at least be reasonable. Don't make threats. Don't do things that you're going to regret, because the internet is not going to forgive if you do stuff like that. You understand? Like, if you take someone who's a legit, respected content creator, and now you're threatening them because you think that it's going to save you and your family, dude, you made the bed already. You're stuck in it now. You have to live with it. You have to find a way to persevere. And I hope you do, actually. In truth, I hope Rich does persevere over this, because he does have a lot at stake. He does have a family that relies on him, and he has to find a way to make it work. What he's doing right now is not working, okay? It's not at all. It's the opposite of how someone should act if they actually are taking this seriously and want things that are to be better. You don't make threats. You don't do awful things like this. You have to man up and say, okay, you know what? It's going to come out. I'll watch it. I'll react to it myself or whatever, and there you go. And that's that, okay? That's my take on it.
And this is actually where I want to end the clip, because right now DSP seems like the voice of reason, and the last thing that he says actually kind of makes sense. Unfortunately, he does talk a bit longer and kind of ruin that, but fortunately for everyone, he really just repeats himself and brings up the same tired points for the millionth time about how everyone is worse than him and he's the unkillable roach of the internet, so really no need to sit through all of that if we don't have to. You guys know what's up. But with all of that extra time, I want to look at some of the comments from my last video, so big ups to the 60 skulls. Mikazuki Ishitar says, "This is complete full-on only child behavior. He completes the most mundane tasks and expects some kind of reward or pat on the back or a glass of the extra special gin, I guess. DSP was just born 30 years early. He would fit perfectly with the current generation." And that could really be said for a lot of the things that DSP does. A lot of his behaviors reek of only child mentality. And he absolutely is the type of person that they made participation trophies for. Because it isn't enough for him to feel a sense of accomplishment all on his own. He must have some sort of recognition from a wider audience. Harley Wood says, "The Phil of 16 years ago would have done insert thing he still does almost, if not every single day." This dude does not change outside of losing any passion he ever had about content creation. And that's one of the most ironic parts about that entire segment, was that he was dunking on himself 16 years in the past, when all of the things that he was calling out, all of the things that he was pointing to are exactly the same behaviors that he exhibits today. The only real difference is that his voice has somehow become more obnoxious and the snort sacks have damn near quadrupled in size. And Lost in Hollow came through and said something that I don't think too many people honestly share an opinion with, and that's that he personally is a big fan of the retired boat owner style attire. And I'm gonna keep it a $1.25 with you, Chief. I absolutely am not. I would much rather he be sitting in those greasy decade-old gamer shirts. At least gamer shirts is kind of relevant to the type of content that he makes. Whereas right now he's dressing as your retired drunk uncle while simultaneously saying that he doesn't have a drinking problem at all, and in fact barely drinks as is. It's all just nonsense, and I'm done with it. But speaking of being done with it, this video, so I want to give a big shout out to everybody who watched it, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other detractor content and dive deeper into that Snortex.
And by the way, Atlas agrees